Yud Aleph Nisan Sheni Adar Sheni Hatavshin Samech Ches Hemshech Samech Vav page Kuf Nun Dalid.
Right. So we saw the Pu'ula of Achilas Shabbos and the Amshocha on the day of Sudas Malava Malka of the Kedusha Achila of Shabbos or called Yemais Achil. And we saw that the Indian Bazar was a dogma to what the Rebbe said was Yichud Eloah, Yichud Tatorah. In other words, we described briefly the Greidel HaMaila of Yichud Eloah, how everything was Tachas HaBitl in two Ifanim, either how it is Kula Kamei Chalei Chashivei Mitzad the Bitl of Ayin HaRoich Mamish at the Nivra Milmata HaMaila Klapei Elakus, or we saw that there was how nothing can possibly be Mail Mamastir Al HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Etzem Atzmus Eitzev, therefore he's Nimtza Lamata B'diuk Kamoila Laila, therefore everything is B'tachas HaBitl Matzias Mamish Koidem Shenivra Elam Lagamri. In other words, everything is Kol B'atzmus, just like it was prior to the Bria, and that's the mile of Yichud Eloah, a tremendous killer of the Bitl of the Nivroi. And then we saw Yichud Tatorah, which are the Nivra. Amna Be'emes knows that it's bottled Be'elakus, but Al Chaponim it feels itself as a Matthias Torah. Lamata, and its Bitl is a Bitl of Yesh, Bitl HaYesh, Klapei Elakus. Yichud Eloah v'ch Yichud Tatorah. Well, we saw that even he also in the actual oifen of chayim, the oifen of experience, you might say, of Yichud Tatorah. In other words, that the world is a Matthias, and he lives in the world as he experiences the world as a Matthias. Nonetheless, he's mamshich into that oifen of being, and that even of Chaim, the Yichud of Yichud Eloah. In other words, if we would say that his even Chaim was mitzad Yichud Eloah, then he would be l'malchatchila in a state of rotzoi, or as we saw, choiser inyan ha'ishashvus lamata b'klal, because everything is bottled. Ain't called mitzias klal. And we saw that the kavanah is to be dafkila lamata. Therefore, the Rotzen Amiti of Atzmas Ein Seif is that we should see the world how it is mitzad Yichud Tatorah. I know that the world is a world and it is a Matthias, and there's a necessity, albeit mitzad Yichud Eloah, it's not so much a necessity, you just feel it anyway. Belavochi. Al Chaponim, there is a necessity mitzad the Emes HaKavanah to be in the world and to experience it as a Matthias, but that's al derech v'diyini of Yichud Tatorah, and in that to be Megalim Milmaila Lamata, the Amitius Abitl of Yichud Eloah, which means that he's Megala in all of his Zinyonim, Gashmiim, and the Dugma Apshut is Achila Ushasiya, and things of that nature, the Bitl of Atzmas Ein Seif, so that everything he does is in the oven of Bitl Goma to Elakus, despite the fact that he is in the world, and he's, how do you call it, a mensch bein ha anoshim, and he lives in Seder of a Nasuda Dikha Oifen Hachayim Begashmis Oilam. And so we brought a raya from Shabbos, we brought a dugma upon him from Shabbos, where we see that Shabbos is that even though it's a mitzvah to eat it, be ma'anig, I'm sorry, the inyan of Shabbos, Davkifu Achila Ushasi Water Inyanim Kashmiyim, we saw that they become on Shabbos, they become Inyanim Ruchniim in Madrega Gavoya Beyoisa, just like the inyan from Ava V'yira B'tfila, so that when he eats on Shabbos, that's really a inyan from Teichef Aruchniyas, And Bamela, it's not Megashim, it's not an Indian from Gashmis V'chumiyas, the Achila of Shabbos, and therefore it's not Shaykh, a Yerida to the Achila of Shabbos. It's a Indian from Lamaila Mia Biro. And so we said that the Suda of Moitzoy Shabbos was to be mamshik that on the Achila of Kol Yamais Achila. So then we saw the bracket where the Rebbe put in that it's not the Kavona in Yichud Lo, Yichud Tatua, this inim which is Mavua, B'Mekeimus Acherim, the Yichud of Havaya Echot, I know the inim from Yichud Ha'olamas and Yichud Hanivroim, but that's in Havaya Echot, Milmaila Lamata, what there the Kavona is that Kol HaDvarim HaTachtonim Heim Elakus Mamish. Avokan harihu b'finas metzias gashmi, elo she'alidei bitulei v'teichev isyachadusei be'elakus, k'moi shehu lamata davke l'zeis kol asiyesov agashmim hein elakus. V'hainu shehu alidei avidosei mahapeich, he reverses and he alters Es advorim agashmim shenasim elakus. That's where we paused the other evening. But that requires a biur, it requires an explanation. What is it try to say that a mensch can turn dvorim gashmim into elakus? What is the pshat? Albeit he has the highest kavanas and he has the highest understanding of how his hanhoga should be, how his conduct should be, and he's yuchad in the bonus or the havana of Yehudi Loa. How does he take a dova gashmi and change it into lakus? And what does he mean by this union of understanding of Hashem Echad Milmaila Lamata? That makes it all the dvarim hataktonim hein elakus mamish. So we have to understand that statement at the beginning of the brackets refers to a certain understanding which we mentioned briefly the other night, and mitzad that understanding that all the Dvarim Gashmiyim in the world are really divinity, really eloquent, absolutely. Avokan, he said, but here the Kavona is not like that. He should be dafki in the world, and he should see the world as a world and as nivroim, as created entities. Ober, through his giving himself away to Elakus, he's uniting himself with Elakus, being mamshet the Yehudi Loa into his situation. How it is in the Elam HaGashmi. So then he said he's mahapich as a dvarim gashmim shenasim elakus. But he doesn't say that they're nasim elakus mamish. He just said that dvarim gashmim nasim elakus. So we need to understand what's it. I mean, it's very, very powerful l'sheinos, and it's obviously a very, very profound inyan of what is it. What is the biur and what is the inyan? Because it's a very key section. It's obviously a very key point that the Rebbe says that this is the tachlis of all what you might call Jewish and Hasidic life, is not to be in a matzav in Yehudi Loa stam, not to be in a matzav in Yehuda Tatua stam, but to be in both of them. That means to say to be in the Ergish of the Olam, in other words, to feel and to live the Olam as a Gashmistic Olam, and in that to bring the bittul of Yehudi Eloah, that ain't shum dova mailim u'mastir who kolol be'atzm seitzev, bottle be'atzm seitzev. So he said that's the ultimate tachlis. Al yidei zeh, you cause that everything becomes elokut. But this other Indian that we know in another place, well then the Inyanim are elokus mamish. And that's not what we're talking about here. So he came, what are we talking about? What does it mean? So I have to say, Ba'ivin Koser. And we pointed out that there are two expressions in the Rabbeim that in some way bring out this whole idea of whether things are Mumayla Lamata Elakus Mamish. And that is, we saw that there's two ways of explaining in the Yiddish language, briefly, very briefly, the Yichud Adar II Mumayla Lamata, what that's mitzad Chochma. or the Metisinian from Chokma, or whether we say that Yichud Mitzad Matal Amaylo, or this Mitzad Bina, that we say that either Als is or is Als. Either everything is him, or he is everything. So if I say everything is him, then I'm starting off to a certain extent Lamata, and I'm saying I'm putting it up into him. I'm saying everything is him. But if I say that he is everything, then I'm starting off with him, and I'm saying that he is everything, meaning that everything's gone up and become part of him. It's mamish him. Which means, if we say that, then that means that there's really nothing, only Elikus, only mamish expressions of the divine being. And that's Hashem. Which means that everything he gave forth is really just him. So how come we refer to the Olam as Nivraim? What Nivraim means, created entities, but that means that they're not him. They're, on the contrary, they're bottled to him, but they're not him. So how do we have our cake and eat it too? How can we sort of say both? So we point out to one of the guys after the shir the other night, and that's Anakuda Amitias, that the Eibishter made the world through the Inyan from Tzimtzum, as is well known. And that all the Inyanim, as they are limited creatures and limited entities, limited oilamas, they all came about mitzad the Tzimtzum. And the Tzimtzum means that Hashem hid himself. In other words, instead of being Begolui, he literally hid himself. By hiding himself, by the fact that the Atzmus went into a form of unnoticeability, mitzad the Makablim, not mitzad the Emet. I mean, even when he made the Tzimtzum, he didn't hide himself be Emet, but he hid himself from the Makablim. Therefore, there's a possibility for the Makabel at least to feel that there's something else, that there's Hashem and there's something else. And so we have to say that since the Makabel feels himself that way, and he was meant to feel that way by Hashem, then there's a certain inyan in Hashem where he wants that to be, that there should be like another thing apart from him. It's not really true ultimately, but he wants that there should be him and the entity. And that's the whole concept of the Tzimtzum, that he hides in such a way that it does come about. The entity. Ultimately speaking, we can't really say that there's anything apart from Hashem. Ki berega, what you say, that something came about, and it's got an emerson material apart from him, then you can't say Havaya Echad anymore. There's already something there. Albeit he brought it about, but once upon a time it was only Hu Levade Hu, and now there's something else. There's been a Shinui by Eidin Shudera. Albeit, maybe not a Shinui, but Musay, but Gilu Avorim Yeshinu. And therefore we have to say that ultimately speaking, it didn't really happen. But it didn't. It didn't really happen in the sense that symptom is not a real Elam V'Hester. It's only that Hashem allows it to be in such a way that you think that you really are there, and He considers that Al Pitera a truth. That you are there. And as the famous writer we mentioned earlier from the Rebbe Marash months ago, that the Rebbe Marash said, if you don't say that Hashem did give it some real right to be there, then how can we punish people and things like that for having done things if they're not really there? What does it mean you punish them? They're not really there anyway. And he brought the famous raya from the Mishnah in Masechta Sanhedrin, where the Mishnah says that if a man is a sorcerer, he can make tricks. Things happen. Well, that's a serious issa. Al Peter, it's a chiyuv misa. The Mishnah brings out there that if a sorcerer makes you look at a field and makes the field move, you think of all the how do you come to the turnips got up and walked over and planted themselves in another place, but it didn't really happen. It just looked to you as if it happened. Then he's potter, even though he did a sorcery because he made you think that field got up and replanted itself. But he's potter because it was all a dream. It didn't really happen. He just made it look that way. But if he did sorcery in such a way that they got up out of the ground, they walked over and planted themselves in another place, and you saw that, and you saw that actually happened in the world, then he's chayav means. And he stayed taught in the Mishnah. So the Rebbe Marash said, wait a minute. He said, if everything's a dream anyway, if the whole world is anyway not really a Matthias, it's not really there, there's no real Nivroim, then how come you're Mechayev in Mesa? So the other thing you can say is, we're not really Mechayev in Mesa either, it's all just an act. It's all just a spiel. We're not really Mechayev in Mesa anyway. I say, everything written in the Torah doesn't really happen, it's not really there. Elamai, we have to say that there is a Matthias al Torah. There is a Matthias al Torah. However, that Matthias, like Abi Hashem, is not really an Emerson Matthias. Our Matthias Amitias idus. So, as a man that Hashem gave it a certain gushpanka, he gave it a certain seal of Matthias in order to play around with you. He wanted to try you, he wanted inside this whole game that he's playing, as it were, and he gives it a certain reality that there should be for your sake, kakva, v'ka. Over BM is, I had a say, how did it all come about? Because he hid himself in such a way. Over come along certain people, and they said, that's how he hid himself, he denied himself, something happened. I mean, Mashu Kara. So, compared to his Matthias, it's not an Emerson Matthias. Of something happened. You can't just say it didn't happen, because if you say it didn't happen, then you run back to the Rav Marash's problem. So therefore we have to say that, ultimately speaking, something did really happen. So that's two ways that you can understand that. Either you take it mitzad the tzimtzum, and you take it mitzad the tzimtzum, and then you say it did happen. If I remember, it really did happen, and I experienced that because I'm meant to experience it. Is that what happened? Or you say no, you go mitzad the Eibishter. As far as he's concerned, it didn't really happen because it's all him anyway. It's all just him. But I said, then you can tie up. All right, so it's him. But he made a piece of himself go out from himself, as it were. That wasn't there before the creation. So that there's a famous mashal. I don't know if we need to go into the famous mashals, because then we're getting too complicated. There's a famous mashal, and that is that if a king is sitting, just imagine a huge emperor sitting at the tables, and he's got this huge sudas going on, and all the avodim and everybody all bottled to him, but there's a people and they're all basking in the glory of the Melech, what they're going to do it. It's Chai V'Kayom, and it's amazing. Something happened. What happened? It doesn't really happen. That's the only thing to make you a bit happy, it doesn't. So, but you see, it does happen, but it doesn't. So the king's sitting there, and everybody's just completely and utterly bottled in his glory, and all of a sudden the king sees a little old schlepper, a little old poor man that's got absolutely no place in the whole court of the king. But don't do it, everybody's looking at you now. You're now the center of attention. Nobody's listening to a heck of a word that I'm saying. Everybody's watching you play with your issue. Okay, so forget it. The king all of a sudden sees this little schlepper, this little poor man, and he says, "Oh, this is my man." And the king brings him up and sits him alongside him. And he's a little dirty old schlepper, and all these are beautiful king's vassals, and all these vassal kings, and all these avodim, and all these people, and everything. And all of a sudden the king hopped around this little gornish, brings him alongside him. So, the point is that the king brought him there. He didn't stoop himself in. The king brought him there. So the fact that the king brought him there, even though he doesn't really belong there, but the king brought him there, then does that in any way impinge on the greatness of the Melech in the eyes of the Sorim? Does it in any way change the greatness of the Melech and his one and onlyness in the eyes of the Sorim? No. And on the contrary, maybe in a way it even increases their bittul to the Melech. For sure, it doesn't in any way impede. Because that's the Melech's own doing. He brought him there. So, I feel if we'll say mitzad atzmusay, he made a piece of himself go out of himself. But since he did that, and that was his deliberate doing, and that piece is anyway him in a way, that it doesn't really alter anything. That's what we have to say, ultimately speaking. Over in that group of these two Aravonas, on the one hand, either we say it's mamishim, or we say no, mitzad the tzimtzum, it's not mamishim, it's like a thing that went out from him, and it's like you, it's become a separate entity. So the truth of the matter is that in a way you can't have them both being true, but you can. And so what's the difference is between now and Liossi? And it's put down on my mouth in the middle of Rabbi Liossi, all the Nivroim are going to be there, and they're all going to be Mamish Elikus. Divinity, nothing else. The whole world, the whole universe, else, humanity, Elikus himself, and that is going to be the Tachlis Hashleimus that Hashem was able to bring about something apart from himself that it's really him. Nowadays, we experience through the Tzimtzum. In other words, we live this Helen that Hashem made of himself, and it appears to be, as it were, something else, and Hashem wants that it should appear that way because he wants to try within that whole try that thing. In other words, the whole thing is a spiel. It really is. It really is a form of a game. And therefore it's put down in certain Maimonim that the whole thing is this unbelievable play that they used to make with man. There was a classic Noiro Alilo Al Bnei Adam. It's like a tremendous plot, like a game that Hashem has with man, because he's not really, but he is. He's not, but he is, and you can move back and forth. And the only way to decide is the Rebbe Marash. You have to say, oh yes, he is, but he's not really, but he's enough. He's enough in order to be a problem. Way if he steps out of line. That's the amazing thing all about it. So, if we take now the situation at a man how he is mitad the tzimtzum, and he really is not really there, but he is, but he's not, but he is, and mitad the tzimtzum, what's happening now is that he has become mitad how he's meant to feel it. He's not really close to Hashem. On the contrary, he's become like a separate entity. So what do you mean that he can make himself eloquent? He can make all of his inyonim eloquent. So we can explain that in two ways. We can say that in two ways. Aleph, we can say that he has a kavana. He changes his whole being of a separate entity, and he gives himself away to Hashem in such a way that all of his kavana, his whole purpose, he wants to make everything for the sake of Hashem. Kol ma'asecha yiyu l'Hashem shom ma'im, and even more than that, b'chol drachecha do'ehu, give yourself away completely to him in all that you do. And so therefore we say that kavana, or that turns what he does so much into Hashem's a thing that it becomes like Hashem. It becomes like as if it were, it becomes his. Therefore it becomes like a divine thing, not a human thing anymore. Or we can say even better and even deeper, but that would only be by really great and achieved people. And maybe the Rebbe and the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach or Anashim, maybe they reach that unbelievable level. And Dahainu, that they're able to change that tzimtzum, that's what he says, mahafchim, that they mamish alter things, so that they become what they're going to be like, liyosid love, that they're really going to become a divine thing. In other words, that they like in a point in the middle, it's not mamish liyosid yet, but they're already living me'ena liyosid. In other words, that they've altered and they've gone beyond the tzimtzum. That's why I said to Shimon the other night, he asked me a very intelligent question. I said to him that that's what's written by Yaakov Avinu, that he wrestled with the tzimtzum. It's written, Ki sorisa im Elokim. You literally, how do you call it, you wrestled with the koach hatzimtzum. And he beat the koach hatzimtzum, and he came into the Matthias Amiti as Atzuri Elikus. In other words, he went beyond the whole thing. If I met a person like that is already living in the Yosid Lover. And that's what the Gemara says in Masechet Brachos. And the Gemara brings out there in Omatai, in Daf Zayin Dot, Omadala, near the bottom, the Gemara brings that there was a whole group of people that used to go to Rebbe Chanina. They used to go for Shabbos and for Yom Tovim, Lekabos Pnei Rabbom, and the whole thing to be with him. They're falling some Rebbe. Of Shabbos. They used to travel to the Rebbe. So it's written that they met a group of guys who were going and they were coming back. So these guys said to him, what do you see over there? And everything. So they said, if you go over to Rebbe Chanina, then Oilom Chotira B'chayecha, you're going to see your Oilom Abor early in this world. They say, Oilom Chotira B'chayecha, in other words, that even in the life of this world, you're going to see the life of And you can't have either you're allowed to love here, where time. You're going to go beyond the whole union of that symptom, and you're going to live with the things how they're really Hashem. So they're really Him, and that's what the great Chachomim revealed to their Talmidim, B'Shas, Bikuram, B'Shabbosos, V'Yomim, Atoiv. So therefore we get some idea what it means. And that's what we see by the Rebbe. I would say on several occasions, when it was clear that the Rebbe never ate any sort of Shabbos or anything like that. It came somebody who just completely in another world. But Pashtus, you believe, without show, without big pomp and splendor, Pashtus, that's how he was. Yeah, another world to go. Nicht in the Elam, or in another Rishut, or he moved over into, very great, Elam Chatira B'chayecha. And had we had enough seichel, we would have realized that that's what we were doing, and we would have jumped into the Elam Abba, and we would have brought Mashiach, or maybe a long time ago. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to stop bothering our cup with all this kleine stichler. Ich hab ja, ich hab nicht, ich hab ja Geld, ich hab nicht, let's get cracking, let's move into what the Rebbe wants. Anyway, suffice it to say, Yesh Lema, that's what the Rebbe means. And therefore he says that the person's kol inyon of agashmim, nashim elakus, hu mahapik es advorim agashmim, and he makes them into elakus. Well, that's what he says. Now I challenge you to understand it. What is the pshat? What does that mean? So therefore, that's what I'll try to explain. And I mean, it's a very, very unbelievably profound inyan, and Yesh Lema is hidden in that, the whole secret of what is Chassidus we're aiming at. What is Sof Kosor, the Tachlis? What is the ultimate aim? And what is the Taich? Moshiach, what is the Taich Elam Abba? Overpanim, says the Rebbe, V'avoida zu hi l'mayla harbe mibchinas yichudei Eloah mitzad atzmei. He said that's much higher than just being in Yichudei Eloah. Now that is an unbelievable thing, because Father we've been in Yichudei Eloah, no world, and nothing there. So the Rebbe demands of you that you could be a mensch which you behold by Yichudei Eloah, and you know what Yichudei Eloah is. You come back from Yichudei Eloah into the Matthias of the world, and you bring into the Matthias of the world the ganze Kille von Elok. Kamoshu mitzad ha'amitius ha'etzem. This is an amazing trick. In other words, it's like the Friedrich Rebbe said, in Welt und Oiswelt zusammen. The Friedrich Rebbe said that the whole tachlis of the ganze Avodas Chassidus is to be in the world and out of the world together. In Welt und Oiswelt zusammen. And if you understand it with Yiddish, you'll understand just how untranslatable that expression is. Oh, but that's what it means. The Halavayda, we should really have some appreciation. So there was a Rebbe Indian, and he said that's much of a koshchein mibchinas klois hanefesh. How much more than the Indian of klois hanefesh? In other words, just to want to go out, just to give yourself out altogether and forget the goof and just go up and jump into the flame. Shalamai, like the Bnei Aaron did. I mean, you're allowed to say that. I mean, the Bnei Aaron were kodesh, they were holy of holy. The Bnei Aaron, unbelievable holy people, but they just went straight up into Elokus, bekluis hanefesh, and the Rebbe said that's easy. That's what he said. That's basically easy. But to be in the world, on Oisveld, to be in it and make that world the same bittel as Yichudei Eloah, even your term is there, to make it like the bittel of Elam Chotira B'chayecha. Well, that's really a trick. And that's a lot of piece of work. Ulavadzoi, the cleanest klois hanefesh, benokev. He said, and apart from all this, he said, klois hanefesh is easier. When you see these expressions, you know what you're really talking about. It's easier. I mean, it's an amazing statement that Klois HaNefesh is easier. So Klois HaNefesh Nochel Lefish Zeu Yosef B'Teva HaNefesh. Oh, now we get down to Tintax. He said, why is it easier? Because if you go reach a state and you elevate yourself to the point where you're in a matter of Klois HaNefesh, you must just go out. Mamish to Elokus. He said, that's really the Teva. That's a natural thing. In other words, that if we really got down and examined the situation, we could understand that. Oh yeah. Klois HaNefesh does a Teva HaNefesh. Wait a tight. Because what is a Nefesh? A Nefesh is a Davar key, and it wants to go back to Elokus. It just wants to give everything away and go back to where it really belongs. So he said, that's a Davar TV. It's a Davar TV. Ultimately speaking, is easy. In other words, it happens in a way that if it just happens properly, then nothing will interfere with it, and there won't be any, as it were, in inverted commas, difficulties. So therefore, said the Rebbe, wherever you got Teva, you don't really have, in the final analysis, emesa avoido, emesa effort on the part of the person. He said, if he said, so, yesa beteva hanefesh. I know, what do I mean beteva hanefesh? I know b'chinas is galas hanefesh. Loi biha achmi shaloi mami. Ki'im b'chitzoini yusoi. He said, that's, when I say in the teva nefesh, I mean in the outer aspect of the nefesh. And then he puts in brackets, loi biha achmi mamish. Ki'im b'chitzoini yusoi. In the chitzonius of the nefesh. Now we just said that that's a in TV mitzad the etzem nefesh, and he said no, that's a chitzoni. What does he put in the bracket? Loi b'chinas achmi shaloi mamish. So you should already remember, we just learned on the previous page, that Rebbe said that the union of that there should be a world, and there should be Amshochas Atzmus in the world. That's the shurish of the whole Kavana, Mushrash Be'atzmusa Yizborek, Mamish rooted in the Atzmus. That's the whole Kavana. Neshava HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yis Leidira Batach, Atach Toinim Dosum Mitzad Mamish Amitis Atzmusa Yizborek. And where are the Neshamas? Where are they Mushrash? Where do the Neshamas come from? They come from Atzmus ain't safe. That if the etzim shurish of the neshama in Atzmus, she knows that the Alam Batachlis is to be down Lamatan, to bring everything down and make a dirolay bara batach toinim, and was gicha and take of miyad mamish and masu yotema maher and yosef misimko betul levo. You have to make it mamish lamata. So therefore, said the Rebbe, really mitzad the atzmiyas of the nefesh, then the nefesh really go for shoy. And what do we mean by saying that the teva of the nefesh is to go for rotzoi? So he said that we mean mitzad chitzonias. Now when we say chitzonias, we don't just, the word chitzonias in the Bible can mean just, a surface thing, not something really worked out, something mitzad the pnimi, chitzoni. So he said that's not what I mean. What I mean to say is that compared to the very etem, then that's like a way of chitzonias. And he brings a dogma which we've already had before. And he says, it's understood that ain't a kavana chitzonius mami. When we say the word chitzonius, we don't just mean, surface, outward sort of stuff. Ki'im asher nikra chitzonius legabi ha'etzem mami. It's called chitzonius compared to the very etzem. It's a very deep matter. It's the oil gilui of the etzem. It's the gilui and oil of the etzem, mami. But nonetheless, compared to the very pshitas of the etzem and how the etzem really understands things, then that's called chitzoni. Yes. So he brings the duma that we had earlier, when I get to Rotzen Tainu. I don't know if you guys remember, we had the Oinin, over there in V'yadaitiv, we had the Oinin from Rotzen V'tanu. Yesh leim the commotion is boil you b'dibo amas v'kiyadativ. That's in Pasha Vayero. Be'inyan Rotzen V'tainu. That we said that Shneihem b'chinas etzem. Both of them come mitzad the etzem. Rotzen is gilu etzem, amshochas etzem, to a thing. Tainum is the aliyah of the etzem and the iskalus of the etzem in the inyan of oinig, which is an inyan from klois klape maila, going up into higher state. That's the difference between Rotzen and oinig. But both of them are mitzad the etzem. Both of them are giluim, or not giluim. Both of them are movements, as you might call it, of the etzem. Therefore, when a person wants something, he wants it with his whole being. When a person is misanig and he has a tainug in something, he loses all of his koychas chitoniya. Yeah. You see when a person hears a beautiful nigun, he can just become completely lost. Or when he experiences another tainug omuk, he loses his normal kesher with things which are going around him because the etzem is involved. So therefore we saw that those are the two inyanim of tainu and rotzen. Earlier we said rotzen u chitonias ubi his galas. That's the whole. We call rotzen chitonias because it's gilui. Tainu pnimius ubehelam, because the teva of tainu is to withdraw and to pull you into a state of almost like unawareness. That's the emazinian of time. So therefore we said that rotzen was chitoniya. Now only somebody who's crackers would say that rotzen is chitoniya. Rotzen is not chitoniya. Rotzen is the tweak of the etcher. Why do we call it chitoniya? Because its inyan was to go down into the olam hagalui and to bring the etzem to express itself in things outside itself. And therefore we call it chitoniya. You go into yourself and you draw the things with you and you just go into a state of korev lechlis. You sort of get lost in the inyan and you draw all your koyches into a thing which is similar to rotzen, but it's a different movement altogether. It's called tainu. So there was a Rebbe, we called rotzen chitoniya, like that. But not that we meant it was really chitoniya. What we meant to say, rotzen, and it's even explained in some places on the contrary, that's even a koyach in rotzen, which is very enviable in a way, that rotzen can actually come out and go down in and bring your whole etzem into inyanim shemichutz la'atzmach. And that's what we meant by the word chitoniya. We had a whole big reason about it in Adar II. And therefore the Rebbe said in a similar way, that's what we mean here, that rotzoi is chitoniya. And the inyan of wanting to go up in klois hanefesh and so on, that's an inyan for chitoniya. Not what we mean is just a write-off, something that's not deep or not meaningful. Chitoniya. That's not what we mean. Chitoniya is in the sense that it's more shayach to the inyanim which come begolui and draw the giluim of the etzem, not the pshitas of the etzem. It's a very profound inyan. For Harai, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Perek Yud Tes, and the Alter Rebbe said that the inyan wanting to go upwards on the part of the neshama, mitzad the very essence of the neshama. He used over there the expression, because he said that, and the Rebbe is going to bring it here in a minute, that the inyan from a nitzot wants to go up to the flame. And every neshama is a nitzot eloki kemavur betanya Perek Yud Chet.
I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing Ratzai and Ratzain. I understand how Ratzai could mean going up and withdrawing into a place in Nefesh, but I can also understand how Ratzain...
Yeah, but Ratzon is another word altogether. Ratzoi and Ratzon are similar root words, but they mean completely different things.
That's the thing. I'm seeing both things.
Yeah. The word Ratzoi is a running outwards, a going outwards and a moving upwards. Like a losing of the self in a higher, going upwards into an expression. We've had that the whole time. For Iladim from Ratzon means my will. And so usually your will means that you want something. Because if you want it, you're prepared to go out and get it. Even if it's something, it's almost like bringing other things into your etzem. So to a certain extent, Ratzoi is also a Ratzon. It's also a Ratzon. But it's a rotzen which connected with a certain movement, which is the idea of going outwards to Elikus. Edefa, says the Rebbe, the inyan of calling this inyan from rotzoi chitonias is like we call the rotzoin with the nun, chitonias like avidatainu. And he said, Yesh loim a boil yil. The beginning of rotzen, Tashnayim and Elsha rotzen uk chitonias, ubis galas, Ratainu pnimis ahelam, Kamoy Kain, who beginners rotzoivo shoi. Tashnayim ein be'etzem hanefesh, Ela sharotzoi beginners chitonias, Vashu beginners pnimias. Now we don't mean Cholila chitonias in the sense of just a surface thing. No, we mean it's more adova begolui. The etzem is like revealing itself to its own shoulders. And the inyan from shoiv is pnimiyas, because shoiv has got the ability to be devoted so much to what is Ratzon Hashem that is prepared to go against the normal Ratzon Atzmi of the Nefesh. Is prepared to go down and do only what is Hashem's will, and that's a inyan from pnimiyas. And therefore he said that the inyan from Ratzon is la'alish l'mayla. Its whole inyan is to go upwards. A commission is boil v'diva masel ne'achanika mitzvah lanichol. Sheteva hanitzot ha'eloki la'alish l'mayla. Sheyesh b'zeh toikev v'tshuka gedela b'nefesh. In other words, that like he explains over there in Perek Yutes, the Alter Rebbe, that every neshama is a nitzot, and a mamela it wants to go back into its flame, which is the inyan of the Eibush, Elikus, mamish how it is. Every neshama wants to go out and go back, and he brings over the Alter Rebbe that you've got to all the time, as it were, go against that grain of your neshama to be lamata. So in Cain, that's in the very essence of the neshama, how it is a nitzot. So we're talking then about a very essential thing. It's a dova be'eter, and therefore it's called teva hanitzot ha'elaki alish lamayla sheish b'zeh toikev v'tshuka gedela ba. There's a tremendous longing and a tremendous outgoing desire to go upwards into Elikus. V'gam, he said, shebazeh nirish boi yoisa ha'elikus shemeya yoisa begiloi b'nafshay. And it's got another mila, why a person wants it and why he longs for it. Because when he gets to that point, then Elikus is maya into him and he feels where he got to. In other words, he feels the tremendous benefit of Gilei Elikus to his nefesh. In other words, if you're a nitzot and you go into the flame, then the flame is much more begilei than when you're a nitzot. So when you go up into that state of aliyah in the rotzoi, then you experience a gilui in yourself, and therefore you're much, as it were, fulfilled, and you're tremendously happy and fulfilled mitzad the gilui of Elikus in your nefesh. He says, even though we say that that's by way of going upwards. So if I'm going upwards, then I haven't reached anything yet. I'm all the time going higher and higher, so it's the opposite of gilui. What gilui is always a certain yerid of shochet to you. So if you're going the other way and the gilui is coming, as it were, another way, how do we say it's more gilui? Now the taich is that the nefesh taka achieves its desire. It goes up into such a state that it unites with the flame, as it were, and it becomes one thing with the nefesh. Therefore there's a tremendous gilui. So therefore said the Rebbe, even though it's b'derech haloah, onam nafshay me'ira me'oid b'oel ki, because you come into the flame, as it were, the whole flame lights up your nitzot. So that even though you're going the other way, as it were, from gilui, but you come in to the very source of the gilui, so therefore what could be better? V'yagam, says the Rebbe, even though the truth is, the truth of the matter is that alidei coming down into the world and being makayim the mitzvahs or lamata, your mamshech even higher oil than this flame that which is the source of the neshama that she reaches through her going upwards. He said, when you come down into the world, you bring it a much greater, like we saw earlier, that the oil which is nimshach alidei shoiv is mamish atzmas saying, so mamish atzmas lamata. So that's even higher than what you reach through the Ratzoi. However, said the Rebbe, that's not Begolui. A commotion is boil shehu prinas oyer atzmi. It's mamish oyer of the etzem. Hine amit yisagiloi mizeh yeliosi. V'achshav eno meya begiloi kolkach kemoi b'harotzoi she'ma'ira nafshoi mamish. So when you come through the Ratzoi to the flame mamish literally shines at you, and it can shine at you so tremendously that it can maybe suck you in completely, like it did with the Bnei Aaron. They just went completely into the flame because they experienced the gilui in this unbelievable way that they weren't able to cut off. They couldn't possibly come back. They were just so linked into the flame. However, said the Rebbe, when you come back down, you really bring out even higher oil than that. You bring down the inyan of atzma saying, and you bring it lamata, but you don't experience that pagoli so much. You just know that you've done the kavon elokis, but when are you going to really experience that? Only Li'osid, and that's what we said, that the ultimate Gila Elakus mitzad Nivra, how he is as a Nivra, is only going to be BMS Li'osid. That's when we'll see the immediate sinin of what it meant to be Lamata, to be in the Dvarim Magashim and Meitem Elakus. Well, that's only going to be Li'osid. And therefore the unbelievable uftu, as you might call the achievement that is done through the Shoiv, we do that right now without, as it were, actually seeing Begoli what we've been mamshi. Only Li'osid, we're going to actually see that Begoli what we've been mamshi Chalidei Zeh. That's what the Alter Rebbe, that's what he brings in Perek Lamed Vav in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe writes that was the type of Gila that there was in Matan Torah. It was this unbelievable Gila of Atzmus, Ein Seif, Lamata, and everybody just got completely and utterly bottled. But Matthias Legabi Inyan there, and he said that's what's going to be Li'osid. That's Mi'einach upon him. What's going to be Li'osid Lovei. So to a certain extent, for somebody who's a shoiv and a bal shoiv, but that's the Alam Matachlis, then he's got a very hard task, because he's doing a tremendous avodah and a tremendous giving of himself away, as we'll soon see in a second. But he doesn't really see the ultimate revelation. He doesn't have it, what you might call, in his pocket. He's not able to pocket the Gilui, as you might say, because it's only going to be its full revelation, Li'osid. But what he does do, is he knows that there's a famous mashal from the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Teirim, Pasha Barim, right near the beginning, and the Alter Rebbe brings out there a mashal, and he says that if somebody's got a tremendous treasure and he keeps it the whole time in our safe, he keeps it locked away in our safe, and he's made an agreement with himself that he's never going to look at it, because he's so frightened that if he opens the safe that something might happen to it, that therefore he leaves it all the time in the safe. Although he knows that inside that safe there's this tremendous, unbelievable treasure. Although he doesn't actually see it, but he knows that it's there, and that gives him a tremendous fulfillment, the fact that he knows it's there. So the Alter Rebbe said that's, as it were, the way we are in Shoiv right now. But when we do the Amitis HaShoiv, we don't really have the Emes HaGilu, which is going to be Li'osid, but we know it's there, and therefore the Simcha should be Gedolah V'yah Atzuma. Nonetheless, even though we don't actually see it, Begoloi. That's that whole Indian that we mentioned earlier, that Li'osid, we're going to break that symptom, everything is going to be Begoloi, Hatz Mamish Al-Kruz, and that's what we're Megala now. That's what he said, that's the Avodah of Yehuda Eloah in the world, in the Olam as Olam, and that's what's going to be Li'osid, and that's what we put through the Indian Ashoi. Says the Rebbe, it's like as if you get your cake, but you're unable to eat it fully. You're only going to have it. Zman Korev, take of Miyad. Now, the Kolshkein said the Rebbe, how much more? So, where are we? In the Midrash, Jeremy? In a Begilei Kolkak, Kemoi Barotze Shemira Nafshi Mei. How much more? The Kolshkein Be'ava Rabba B'ta. Nugim, how much more so if the Rotze reaches its ultimate level, which we saw it was the Indian of Ava B'ta Nugim, when he goes up with the Indian of Tainug into Elakus, and he becomes Mamish Nislal Bi'elakus, and that's what the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya, Perek Yud Dalet, at the end of the first section there, and he connected with that Gemara that we mentioned, Olam Chatira B'chayecha, that you can actually, through Ava B'Tanugim, through giving all the Tainug into Ava Selakus, you can mamish have a tremendous Giluim, how they're going to be Me'aim de Li'osid, of the ultimate Giluim de Li'osid is going to be Davki in the Gash.
When you're talking about the type of person here that does show, is it a person who, when he does Rotze, he could feel that Tainug, but he chooses not to? Is that what you're saying? Oh yeah, he feels both. And that's what we saw about Rav Akiva, that he was able to do both. He was able to have both the Rotze and the Shiva. He's going to finish at the end of the Maimah, the Rebbe. We're not far now, we're getting close. The Rebbe is going to say over there, the Emes Avodah is that you should have a Rotze. When you go into the Rotze, you already know what is your ultimate aim, is to get back to the Shoiv, as it were. So then the Rotze is Emes Rotze, and then the Shoiv follows without, as you might say, hold-ups. Ultimately, you will reach the union of the Rotze. He said, if you have Av B'Tanugim, he said, Mishum Kol Zeh, if we take all this into account, Mishum Kol Zeh,
go listen to Khan, Banokel Yesa Pines Harote May Hashoy. It's easier the Rote than the Shoy, because in every way the Rote first was a Dova TV, and to be down Lamata is like breaking the teva of the nefesh. Also, when you're in a Rote, you have everything begolui, your mamish reads a flame and the flame shines at you. You have a begolui, and in the Indian of the Shoy, you don't really have a begolui, you only promise that you'll have it. Bisman Koriv, but not at the Regazeh where you are right now. If Amir Kumto is the mitzad all the inyonim, your profit and your immediate benefit is in the union for Rotzi more than Shoy. He said, Bafrat, Beprinus Toike for Rotzi. I'm sorry, the Mishum goes there, but Nocho Yesa Beprinus Rotzi Mayashoy. Therefore, the union from the Rotzi is much easier than the Shoy. Ubefrat, and particularly, said the Rebbe, let's say somebody got up pretty close to like the Bnei Aaron. He got into a tremendous rotzei, and then you say to him, listen man, you got to go back down, you got to do everything that you want in the Elam HaPashtas, in the Elam HaGashmi. Here's a mention of Matzafu, almost closer nefesh. So the Rebbe said, that's a tremendous task to bring a person like that back down. So therefore he said, Befrat Bipchinas Toikef HaRotzei. Yeah, when a person's in the toikef of Rotzei, he's in the power of Rotzei, that he feels that he wants to leave everything behind and he can't be bothered anymore with all this tircha, b'teicha olam, l'nateikes atzmi me'arotzen v'akiloy and nafshay, to cut himself off. L'natek means to separate yourself off, to cut yourself off from the Rotzei and the kiloy. Kiloy means like the going up and the expiry of his soul. And Dafki to be in a state of shoiv, ze kovid meoid. That's very, very difficult. Hu rak mitzad hanoches atzmusei legamre. It's only mitzad the giving itself away altogether, and we saw that the giving itself away together, altogether, that is the pnimis of Kabbalah Sel. That is really the final story of what Kabbalah Sel is all about. The person puts aside his own inyonim altogether, shebotel miyoid el rotzano elyon, that he's completely nullified himself only to the will of Hashem. Da rotzano elyon anatua umushras bi'atzma sein tzoi baruchu hu sheyeh b'chinas shoiv davke. The Eibusha wants us all lamata davke b'teicha olam, and there to bring down dira b'taktoinim mitzad oitzim bitulei el amitius rotzano elyon. In other words, he's holding by this unbelievable rotzoi. He davke mitzad the fact that he's bought it to the emes inyan and to the genuineness of the rotzona elyon, that he puts himself aside. How do you put it? He lays himself on a side. That he should dafke be in a state of shoiv lamata or b'chinas hanoches atzmusei hanau, or that type of hanoches atzmusei hu in Kabbalah Sel Malchus. In other words, we're linking now the two concepts, hanoches atzmusei, the Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim. However, we saw the Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim is like the expression of hanoches atzmusei. The pnimius of Kabbalah Sel is hanoches atzmusei. Shari ein ze that's not really according to his feeling and to his sensitivity, or according to the tainug and the gishmak, as they call it in Yiddish, of his soul. Yeah, mashaloite, what is good for him. In other words, you ask him what's good for you, he'd say, like to be up in the Yom. That's not what really is for him good. If you asked him, he would say, I would prefer to only just go up and leave everything behind. It's only mitzad that he knows the genuine Rotzana Elyon, and therefore he's in a state of shoiv. He's given away only to the Rotzana of Hashem, and that's the union of putting his whole self aside. Kabbalah El Malchus Shemayim. V'imkein zeu b'chinas Kabbalah El Malchus Shemayim. And he puts in Yiddish, was leik zich avech Bechol atzmusay to atzmus ein sev. He puts himself, he lays himself away. Legt sich weg. In Yiddish, to weglegen means to take something and put it away. Legt sich weg. He puts himself aside and lays himself away in another place. Bechol atzmusay, only to the infant atzmus, only what atzmus will demand of him. That's what he wants. Ubekoyach zeh davke hu b'china shoiv, and davke, with that, he's able to come in to the Indian for shoiv. It's an amazing thing. So I tell the Shalom, where do you get the curve from there? So that's what we saw earlier. That really comes from the Etzem HaNefesh. Because the Etzem HaNefesh is mushrash in atzmus, and therefore in a way it knows ultimately what it's got to do. But when you're in the Tikka for the In and Arota and you feel all these other tremendous Giluim, then it's very, very hard to come back to the Emes Rotten of the Etzem HaNefesh. It's very difficult. And you've got, as it were, make this cut and this determination that you're going to give yourself away, or you're going to put yourself aside completely, only to do Rotzana Ha'atzmus Mamish, Bekol Mashu Hu Yirteh. It doesn't matter if it'll even be mamish against your whole sensitivity and your whole feeling, but you'll do it. So where do you take us? That's what we saw earlier. It's really hidden in the Inif and Atzmas. However, since Atzmas is so withdrawn and Atzmas is so hidden, it becomes your avodah, even though it's really mitzad the fact that you're mushash in the Atzmas. But because you don't really feel the Atzmas begolui, like you do the Rotze and the Chukah, therefore it becomes your avodah. You actually do it yourself, even though the giving of the power for that and the giving of ability in a way is really mitzad the Atzmas. But ultimately, it's your action. Amnam b'yemes harei Rotze hu ba'oven kozeh said the Rebbe she'iyeh achach b'china shoiv. So now it's one that the word omnom is always like a tikkun. The word omnom means but in truth. Yeah, the word omnam means like truthfully or faithfully. So therefore said the Rebbe, truthfully is that the emes of trick and the emes of perfection is when the rotze will be open, because that it'll bring a shayv. That's the emes of trick. Because we were talking up to now that the rotze is so powerful that it needs a tremendous self-effacement to bring to the shayv. And anyway, there'll always be a certain aspect of that. However, said the Rebbe, the truth is, the emes of the whole thing is, that the real rotze should be in such a way that it'll be in order to bring to a shayv. And that's what we saw earlier, when again to Rabbi Akiva, that when he went into the rotze, he was nichnas b'sholem, and therefore he was yotzeh b'sholem. Ve'ilu Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, he went in, but he didn't come back out, because he felt the unbelievable gishmach of the rotze, and he just disappeared, he just went out. He didn't come back. Rabbi Akiva, he went in such a way that he came out. So that's what the Rebbe means by this omno. B'emes, ha'el rotze, hu b'eivim gozeh, the real inyan of rotze, should be b'eivim gozeh, she'iyeh achach b'china shoiv. V'hainu, that the rotze itself should be midah v'mishkal, b'midah v'mishkal, it should be weighed. It should have a certain weight and proportion, that it shouldn't get too much out of hand. V'hainu gam kein mitzad ha'kabbalah she'el malch shamayim sheboi, she'zeu klolos bitulei v'hanochosei be'etzem el amitias atzmas ein tzei porach hu. In other words, that's what he's mavai over there, the Rebbe, in that mimer, famous mimer in Memtes, Beneged to the Indian at the Avish and Ignis of the Pardes, these four people, they went into the great experience of the Pardes. And he writes over there, but again to Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva was so great in Kabbalah Seyo, and he was so great with the whole union of Hanochas Atzmuse, of having given himself aside altogether, only for Rotzen Hashem, that he was able to go into the Rotze right from the beginning with Kabbalah Seyo. In other words, that even he went into his part of it. What Rotze is what you might call his part of the deal. His Gishmak, he was already given away and he was already devoted so much to the Hanocha, to the Kavana Alyona, to Hanocha Zatzmuse, that when he went into the Rotze, he was already, as it were, holding his foot on the brakes, as you might say. He already knew what he was, where the point was going to be reached, that he would come back into a Inim Shoy. And so that's what the Rebbe said, that power, that the Rotze should be mid of a mishkal in order that it should lead to the shoyim, well, that's mitzad kabbalah so malchu shamayim, but he said that's a general beetle of giving yourself away, hanochosi be'etzim, elamitius atmasein say. He's given himself away only to atmasein say, and therefore whatever he will do, it'll always lead to the ultimate kavanah. הרי זה פועל בדרך ממילא בהרוצה שגם תוקף הרוצה יהיה על כל פנים בהדרגה. It'll be with a certain level, certain step by step aspect to it. לא יביס פיילס וסגברס יסיידה, not with a tremendous reaction in a way that it'll get beyond all bounds. כי אם באופן שיהיה שוי in a way that should dafki be different. In other words, when he goes in, he's already full at a decision that he's going to come back out in a way. I don't know, say, why go in? What that's the case? You don't go in the cloud. There's people show you the whole life. And that's what we point out there. Even once we should have Rotze, because dafki through that we gain this unbelievable closeness to Elikus, and that affects a lot of things in our life. It uses tainug and gishmak in Elikus, and that's part of the Rotze of Hashem also. But he wants it to bring that nearness to Elikus and the gishmak and the fulfillment that gives into a state of absolute Kabbalah Soil, Lamata, and the nitzot of that, as you might call, gives you the ability to go back into a Rotze again afterwards. And that's also part of the ultimate Kavanah, that even after the Yeshua, you should have another Rotze. So there you are, you guys, you wanted a Chassidus Chabad, so you got it. Pretty amazing formula. Now he brings the famous marshal in brackets, but I'm considering that maybe we'll do with the marshal Be'ez Hashem after Shah Tov Mitzlachas, after the Giluim of Purim. Tomorrow night I'm thinking I might give a little shir klai. Tomorrow they're having this quiz, what do you call it, like a thing in the Megillah. Yeah. And then after that, in the evening, I might just give a brief shir klai on the Megillah. Since you guys are going to be answering questions about the Megillah, maybe we'll give it in the Megillah, shir klai, just for kids and not barichas. And then we'll continue with the Samech Vav after Purim. I mean, we're close. I'm confident we'll finish the month before the end of the term. But you can see this is the most amazing month. I mean, this is, in my opinion, one of the most, amazing documents in the Samech Vav itself. All the Maimorim here, you see what it's like. Is the far here we see the whole ultimate secret of the greatness of the Emes Gedolei Yisrael, Mayhem. We see all the Teresh of and all the Yonim comes. Well, that's Rabbi Akiva, like the Gemara says, that all the Teresh of literally comes through some way or another. Rabbi Akiva is like dealing; he has to see it and go through it before it appears in public, as you might say. Because Rabbi Akiva is the shleimus of the linkage of the two ultimate things in Ruchnias and in Avodas Hashem and in the Giluim of the Neshama. One in the Tshuka of the Gilu of the Neshama, of the Gula Atzmi of the Neshama, and the zweite in the ultimate giving away of the Neshama of itself to Ratzon Hashem, and to do only what He wants, and to dafki be lamata in the world. So that's the ultimate upshot of the ganze. That's the whole inyan of Avodas Hashem.
Every time you talk about a Ratzai, making it so that your neshama just goes up and never comes back, it's only, you describe the case of Bnei Aaron or with the other three, is it really possible by the Poel just for people, just normally?
Maybe not by some people, maybe not. But what it can involve is, like the Rebbe says, it can involve where a person just becomes nutak from what is the emes of kavanah, and he just becomes lost in ruchnias, and he doesn't really know what is ultimately the kavanah.
Does it come by Torah?
Yeah, it can come through learning Torah or through Indian from Avos Hashem, which we taught you. We gave you the famous example. There was a whole group of people at the time of the Baal Shem Tov. They were called Prushim. Their name. They called themselves Prushim. What that means? How they call it? Separate off. Cut off. And they tell the story about the Tildes, the famous Talmud that he became. Baal Shem Tov said he's my Kahana Rabbah. He's my how do you call it? My Kohen Gadol. He was called the Tildes Yankov Yosef. That's his sefer. His name was Rav Yankov Yosef Mipal Noah.
That's the Yeshiva Me'ashar. It's named after him.
It could be the Yeshiva. I don't know. But anyway, he became a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, but with considerable difficulty. He belonged originally to this whole group that they were called Prushim. And what they used to do was sit in little places on their own, and they would cut themselves off from the world, and they would just wanted to go off into Elokus, not to have anything to do with the world, the cloud. They wouldn't even talk with you, they wouldn't even converse with you, they wouldn't have anything to do with you, and only at certain points would they come down where it's absolutely necessary to say a few words. So they used to fast the whole time. They didn't want to have anything to do with the Elam Agashmi. You follow? So Eino Hanami, it expresses itself in Limud Torah, but that's like the chukka of the nefesh, just to go away and not have to do with the whole thing. And what could be better than to learn Torah? Ein Lamayla Misa. And that's a dogma of so-called ordinary people. The Bnei Arin, they became lit up in such a way, and Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, he's another example, and we find by many of the great Chachamim that they got very close to it.
And isn't Torah also supposed to be the shuv as well? Isn't the shuv coming in Davka learning Torah?
Shuv is?
Isn't the shuv, part of the shuv, isn't it coming and learning, down to the world and learning Torah?
Yeah, but you see, in learning Torah, Gufa, there's two different ways. You can learn Torah because you want to be dovok in high things, and in Ruchnias, or you learn Torah because that's Ratzon Hashem. That Gufa is the Giloi of Ratzonius Baruch in the world. You understand? But those Prushim, they wanted to be kosher in Torah into a higher oilam. And therefore their reading wasn't, paskening halacha as the matter was just,
When we learn Gemara, we're not. When we learn Gemara, we're not trying to pasken halacha. When we learn Gemara, we're not trying to pasken halacha.
In a chanami, but you are in a way. But that's a whole big. You should learn Gemara. Don't cholila have a teretz of not learn Gemara. But the way we learn Gemara is there's a certain way behind it that you won't come to close on nefesh. It's a good time. Of in a chanami, there is a certain inyan in learning Gemara which is connected with Shayim. But the way they learned it wasn't connected to that particular aspect of it. And there were some of them that they were mamish into Kabbalah and into Aliyas and Nefesh and they were mamish almost, they were more out of the world than they were in it. Keep shooting. The Tildes, he was such a great person that the Baal Shem Tov managed to catch hold of him, bring him down.